Hey there, heathens! I'm John, the godless engineer, and I took a left at the valley.
Fantastic.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming to you from Abbotsford, BC, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and my girlfriend came to bed in a sexy police uniform and told me I was charged with being good in bed. The charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence. Joining me as usual is a team who thinks that without women, sex would be a pain in the ass.
Hell yeah, but it's a good pain.
She was appalled by her weight gain. She was flabbergasted.
There's a word to add to your vocabulary.
And she thought she'd give up all hope of having a flat stomach. She abdicated.
Hey, I have a really fucking nice stomach, okay?
You barely have a third dimension.
My ab muscles are rocking.
They are.
Hello,
They totally
farm
are.
work.
Ladies, welcome back. Hope you had a great week.
It has been okay. I miss Kirsten.
Yes, Kirsten is bailing out on us this week due to work.
Yes, she's on a work trip. She gets to stay in a resort with a king-size bed.
Well, jeez. We are jealous.
I am.
I totally am. Right away. So today we'll be talking to the ladies of Forsaking Faith.
We've been looking forward to that for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're coming back and they're going to talk to us about, is the Bible good literature? Mm-hmm. But first, let's do a bit of chit-chat. Now, this is for the listener. Blog Talk Radio, which is our main platform and the one that goes to iTunes, is merging with Spreaker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it essentially means that I'm going to have to change all the links on our webpage that usually sends the listener to Blog Talk Radio and change them all to Spreaker. So I've got a lot of work ahead of us. Me, and eventually in the next couple of weeks, Blog Talk, we're just going to get off Blog Talk Radio altogether. Our platform is going to be from Spreaker, is going to be a main platform from now on. So if you're listening via iTunes and you're having a hard time finding the show all of a sudden, my apologies. It's going to take some work for me to change all these links and all that, but we'll make sure that you guys have what you need to keep on following the show.
Yep.
Yeah,
to have our beautiful voices in your ear.
Yeah, we
Yes.
don't want to
On a
lose any
regular
of our
basis.
listeners. We love you.
No,
We
absolutely.
really do, guys.
Okay.
Especially you, Paul.
Paul from Australia. I've got some awful news. This week, very suddenly, one of our friends from Canada, Deborah McTaggart, one of the hostess from the Beyond the Trailer Park, passed away suddenly.
Yeah.
This just last week, as we finished recording and finished editing the show and all that, and boom, she apparently passed away. From what I hear, is probably a heart attack in her sleep.
Yeah.
My sincere condolences to her family.
Absolutely.
And her listeners.
But it's a really terrible time for them.
Yeah. Deb was one of a kind. She was fearless in many ways. She hosted a show. She's been on our show a couple of times, and it's a great loss for us. And she was supposed to come back on the show very soon. Actually, there were so many topics you can take on with Deb because she was versed in so many things, and. We tried. I tried to do something. I tried to do a bit of a fundraiser for her. She just adopted a kid, and she was about to get married. So I tried to do a fundraiser, but apparently it went against the wishes of the family. So we canceled that, and
Well, everybody tries to do the best that they can.
Yeah.
And, whatever we did or whatever you did, it was and hopefully it was in her best interest, but we'll miss her. She was quite a presence, and she was a wonderful, wonderful person, and it was great to be able. She was a great conversationalist.
Yes, absolutely,
just wonderful,
absolutely.
Yeah.
They say when a person dies, the first thing you forget is their voice. That's the first thing that goes. The image of them stays in your mind, but the way they sound usually is the first thing to go. So here I'm going to present a little clip of Deborah McTaggart, the last time she was on our show. And rest in peace, Deborah.
A while. while. It has been a while, but that's all right.
Remember that time we brought her on CIVL radio and we had her explain to us what a glory hole was? That was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. And she totally did. She totally did. Live on radio. That was great.
Why wouldn't I?
That would have been so entertaining to watch and to listen to.
Oh, we had this.
Hey, it's too bad you guys don't have video. I could show you my water bottle collection.
Oh, God. I'm afraid to ask. Deb, for maybe some of our listeners that missed that show with you, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a quick bio as to who you are and what your show is about.
Sure. Well, I am one of 3 co-hosts of our main show, Beyond the Trailer Park. My other 2 ladies are Beth and Morgan. And we get together once a week, and sometimes we have guests, and sometimes we do go ourselves. And we just talk about anything that we want to talk about in regards to secularism. It's usually to do with secularism, atheism, picking at weird cults or, topical news, whatever we feel like. So sometimes we have a guest to fill in the information. Sometimes we do our own research, but we do a lot of talking.
And that was Deborah McTaggart.
That's thank you for doing that.
No problem, no problem. As she certainly contributed to the show, and we hope that hopefully her show will keep on going.
Yeah.
With different hostess. Continuing, did you guys hear that 46% of Canadians are actually $200 away from not being able to pay their bills?
Oi.
Considering what happened in the States the last 30 days with federal employees, that's really scary.
31% say they don't make enough money. In Saskatchewan and Manitoba, the residents, 56% are near insolvency, essentially. In Alberta, they're at 48%. Ontario and Quebec, they're at 46%. So Canadians
obviously something isn't working, guys.
Yeah, Canadians are way overburdened and debt-wise. And hopefully we can resolve that quickly.
Well, we're all counseled against getting in debt, and people are always reminding us that it's good to live in a frugal way and not have any more purchases than you do money to cover it. But it's becoming increasingly more difficult because people with children have expenses all the time that they're not thinking of, whether it's medical expenses or hockey expenses or recreational expenses or orthodontic. There's just so much that takes it in the car. Goes out and you have to have something. So it's becoming more difficult to live. There's just not enough money left at the end of the month.
Yeah.
I think another massive issue that I know my generation faces is that a lot of people were told, after the baby boomers, were told to go to college.
Oh, yes.
Because
and into
their
computers.
Parents, when they went to college, it was $1,000 for 4 years, and you could work a summer job to pay it off. And so they told their kids they had to go to college.
Yep.
But when their kids went to college, it was $50,000, $100,000,
exactly.
and they had to take out loans. So especially in Canada, where I believe it's over 50% of our population is educated, like went to after high school education. Like, I'm sure a lot of them needed to take out loans. Because I know I'm one of the very few who actually got my college paid for.
Yeah, we could totally do an entire show just on the burden for students.
Well, housing costs as well, not to get
absolutely.
into all the very problems that cause homelessness, but what we're talking about has definitely...
And rent also in Canada is insane. I know in the Fraser Valley alone, if you can find a one-bedroom house under $1,000 or one-bedroom apartment under $1,000, you've got it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And there was this anecdote I'm going to tell real quickly here. I was having a discussion with a millennial that just graduated, and he was complaining how
if they just graduated, they're not a millennial.
Well, at the time.
Okay.
At the time, okay. And he was complaining how some baby boomers were going to him and telling him, pick up your boots by your own scrap.
I know. Go buy a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, $1 million.
Stop complaining. I started with nothing. And he said, I wish I could start with nothing. He says, I'm coming out of school with $30,000 in debt. Now, if I marry my sweetheart, she's got $30,000 in debt. We got $60,000 in debt. I wish I could start with nothing. I'm starting with $60,000 in debt, and I've got no prospect for a job. So if you're one of those people out there with, cut them some slack, because the kids are facing something today that we didn't face, and certainly something the boomers certainly didn't face.
Yeah, and also for our international listeners and our American listeners, in Canada, the housing market is still insane.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
in the Fraser Valley, you can't find a house, even if it's like a tiny house, under at least $500,000.
Oh, yeah. Right here in Abbotsford, $800,000
Yeah, is average.
Yeah, it's very average.
$800,000 average for maybe a 2,000 square foot house.
$1 million for a house, so it's not uncommon around here.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
And then you also have the people telling their kids to save for buying a house, and you're like, that's impossible.
This is why I live in Left of the Valley studio.
Exactly.
We can't afford a house.
Yep.
Okay, bad news, guys. We are at war. Canada is at war with Norway.
With who?
Norway.
Norway?
What kind of war?
This is actually a war I can get behind.
That means there's no more lutefisk?
Do you guys ever hear
the
of
holidays?
Mac the Moose?
Pardon?
Moose, no.
There is a giant moose statue.
Yeah, no, okay, I know what you're talking about now.
Mac the Moose. It's 32 feet tall, and it's in Moose Jaw. Well, Norway decided to build one that's 33 feet tall.
Bastards. We're taking you down.
I cannot believe
Those
this.
nasty Norwegians.
We need to build a 2-foot squirrel to put on top of the moose.
There you go.
Apparently, they named the moose Storlingen, I think. And they built him in 2015, and now he's 33 feet tall. He's 1 foot taller. Make Mac great again. There's a campaign that started apparently in Moose Jaw of all businesses where they want to get some money together. The mayor's behind this, and the people, the business community, they're trying to do a GoFundMe to put some maybe bigger antlers on Mac the Moose and make him 34 feet tall.
Oh, that's fun.
And this is not the first type of war we've had with Norway, because there is that story of where this disputed island.
Yes, that is the best. Because
this is how you do a war.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for our listeners who don't know, there's an island that's a disputed island between us and Norway, and every once in a while, someone from each side will go and plant their flag and leave beer. Or is it whiskey?
I believe it's Canadian whiskey on our side, and they leave schnapps.
Yeah,
the Norwegian leave schnapps.
So we'll leave alcohol for the people who come next.
So we leave whiskey for the Norwegian, and they come and they drink the whiskey, they plant their flag, and then they leave schnapps for the Canadians. And this has been going on for I think over a decade. So
long may it prosper.
To our American listeners, this is how you go to war.
Exactly.
Did you guys hear that apparently there's a trend, and doctors are warning women not to put up parsley up their vagina?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Now you tell me.
Apparently there's an article from the magazine Marie Claire that talked about using a parsley-based concoction to bring your period by softening the cervix.
Why would you want to bring on your period?
Well, I don't know. Maybe
is this one of, what is her name? The actress that
Goop?
No, it's not.
Gwyneth Paltrow?
This is not Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop.
Okay. No, that's a jade egg.
This is actually from the magazine Marie Claire.
Oh, okay.
And of course, when the doctors came out and said, "No, this is ridiculous. Don't do something like that. You can have some serious infections that can occur." Then Marie Claire took down the article, but nonetheless, it was out there for a while.
Don't stick things up your vagina, people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Unless the doctor told you to.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. Did you guys hear that there are companies at the World Economic Forum, they're thinking of bringing back the milkman model?
Yeah,
really?
I did.
Yeah. There's a platform called Loop where they're thinking of starting for shampoo and laundry detergent, where the old milkman model where they would actually bring the product to your door. In this instance, the company owned the milk bottles, but the milk was yours. So you would use the milk and put the empties there. The mailman would come back and take the empties and give you back some fresh ones. They're thinking of bringing this kind of model back for some products to encourage recycling. So the bottle belongs to the company. The product is actually yours. The interest from Nestle, Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, and the goal is to have reusable products like that by the year 2030.
Well, it's actually interesting because when I lived in Armstrong in the Okanagan, there's a milk company that's local that does that actually, but you buy milk in glass bottles in the store, and then when you're done with it, you actually bring the milk bottles back, and you get money back for it.
Yes.
And then they just reuse those milk bottles.
Yeah, those kinds of things, plus bringing your own container, would be great. But I remember as a kid in Chicago, it was the Bowman Milk Company, and I'm old enough to where I don't remember the horse-drawn. I don't remember the horse-drawn ones at the time, but I do remember the white milk truck and the Bowman milkman, and he's carrying 6 bottles at a time in the carrier and putting them on the back porch.
Nice.
I mean, that was when you had to buy milk at the store. It was. What, milk at the store? Milk? You're not supposed to buy milk. Milk's supposed to be delivered. It was so traditional that the Bowman milkman came with the milk bottles.
I'm kind of curious.
Cream.
They're not talking about doing this with milk yet, because I'm kind of curious, because at the time you could do that because there was always somebody at the house. So the milk didn't stay out there for very long. But today, with 2 people working on the average household, and the house is pretty much empty from 7 a.m. till...
Oh, you could put a cooler. You could put a cooler out.
Then people would come steal your milk.
There's ways to
people would
that.
steal your milk
Or your shampoo.
Yeah. But it was great, and the milk was so rich. I remember that the cream was at the top.
Yes,
so you had the
thick
cream for your coffee. Your dad had the cream for his coffee, and then we all had the milk for the cereal.
Oh, the good old days.
Oh, those were great old days, I tell you. And then we could talk about the Iceman cometh as well, but that makes me too old.
Did you guys hear that China has built the biggest air purifier in Shanxi province?
I saw
they
that.
need it.
Yes. So this is like a tower. It's 100 meters tall, which is 328 feet for American friends, and it's to tackle smog. The base of the tower has actually a whole bunch of greenhouse systems, and it's about half the size of a soccer field, and it's heated with solar energy. So the heat rises through the tower, and it passes through filters. And actually, it can improve the air quality over 10 square kilometers, which is 3.86 square miles. And apparently, the tower is such a success, it produces 10 million cubic meters of clean air a day.
How's it doing?
It's doing extremely well, to the point that even on heavy smog days, it reduces the smog.
That's fabulous.
Considerably.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually very interesting that China is developing this new technology, and something that maybe we even here we could.
They had to do something.
Oh, absolutely.
People wearing masks and asthma, and illness, due to all of that smog. So that's hopefully they can reduce the smog from being contributing.
Adding new fog.
There we go.
Or smog, yeah.
Thank you.
Fog.
When my mouth catches up with my brain, it'll be fine. But they can stop the production of smog.
Exactly.
Pollutants, that's the word. But until they get there, that's a brilliant solution.
Well, China's been making a lot of leaps and bounds into going to the green energy, green field, to the point they're surpassing the United States easily.
The U.S. is like running the opposite direction.
Yeah, they're going to be a world leader very soon here on this. So that's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
All right, my dear Nancy, you got a top 10 for us?
I do. Let me grab it here. Around the corner. There we go. You guys had made a request last year for a top 10, so I'm honoring your request. You wanted to know about superheroes.
Oh, and Kirsten's not even here. This is so sad.
I thought it was a top 10. Kevin should be dating these women. No, that's not the same one, right?
Here we go. So these are some of these superheroes. I think I know most of them, but I'm hoping you'll know all of them. So as we'll go through,
I might not.
Fill me in. Okay, this comes from.
So can I just ask, like what is top 10 superheroes, like famous or like?
This comes from a website called Comic Vine.
Ooh, sounds fun.
This is comic book hero. So this is this one person idea.
Yeah, of course,
but that's okay. All of my lists are either an organization. So at number 10 of the superheroes is The Thing.
Yeah, okay.
You guys into The Thing? And
well, I actually never read comic books, but I know who The Thing is.
We know who The Thing is.
So supposedly This is a Marvel comics hero.
Fantastic Four.
And
It's one of the first, actually.
Yeah, he's got some powers that are a curse to him and an appearance. So I don't know what that is.
He looks like
he's
very
covered in rock.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like big and looks like he's covered in rocks.
Which, of course, in the comic book, makes it a struggle for him because he can't really have a normal life. He can't turn it off, so he can't like look human and then be Rockman the next moment.
It's not like the
always
Hulk
Rockman.
where you can be Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
And then you turn into the Hulk. He's always the Thing.
So in the movie's adaptation, they made it look, like things like picking up an object for him becomes difficult. Grabbing a spoon because like everything breaks in his hand.
Okay.
So that's his curse in a way.
Okay, so they say, she says that the reason he makes the list is that he's turned this unfortunate situation into a positive desire to help others, and that's a truly admirable.
Absolutely.
So we agree that he ought to be on the...
We love it.
Okay, I'm just making a prediction. I think Spider-Man's going to be number one.
Okay.
That's my
that's
prediction.
A good prediction. Let's see what happens as we go. Number 9, and this kind of surprised me in a way, but I don't keep up with all of this, is Dick Grayson.
Yeah,
you
Robin.
The original Robin that turns into
Yeah.
The
Nightwing.
original Boy Wonder.
Yeah.
And he, I guess, has emerged into his own his own character.
Yeah.
It's a character we kind of grew up with and kept following. That's the funny thing, right? He evolves over time, which is usually the superhero doesn't. He's always the same way. But this guy went through a transformation from being,
There's actually a new TV show on Netflix.
Yes, I saw that. Titans.
Called Titans, and it's actually really good. And one of the main characters is Dick Grayson after he is no longer Robin.
A darker version.
Yes, he's a much darker version
So
of Robin.
it's the growth of that character that's making...
And him realizing that he doesn't fully agree with Batman and how Batman does his stuff.
The relationship with Batman is what is interesting about that.
That's
because
good.
he starts out as protege, and then eventually he turns out almost against him, and it's drama.
I guess some characters are good as static characters because they maintain...
Superman.
They're reliable. You know who they are and what they're going to do. And other characters are important because they evolve
surprise you.
in some way. So here we've got one that evolves and
Very much
still
so.
is, according to this list, number 9. So the evolution has been a good thing. Yeah, okay. Number 8, The Martian Manhunter.
Oh, yes. Very underused.
I don't know a lot about him because because I'm just going off of TV shows and movies.
But that's what I mean. We don't know a lot about him because he's very underused. I think he's a fascinating character in himself. We should use him more. I mean, he needs a movie for himself.
Yeah, I think the medium or the show that I saw him most used in was actually Smallville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a large part in Smallville later on in the series.
Okay.
And he's a very interesting character in that.
Well, the person that did this list says that, according to her, he's a character that's acted as the soul of the Justice League, if not arguably the DC universe itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Wow, I didn't realize he was that integral to the Justice League.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? I would even venture that if you look at the Justice League cartoon, I think he's actually stronger than Superman too.
Ooh,
interesting.
He's got powers that are really amazing.
Again, I don't know a lot about DC because I'm definitely more Marvel.
Well, maybe that's why he's number 8 rather than further on up. But at least it gives a little homage to.
Yeah, and I definitely seems like a character I want to learn more about.
Yeah. Number 8, Wonder Woman. We finally get a woman on the list here. Okay, so
she's
you
awesome.
Agree?
Yes.
Do we like Wonder
Diana
Woman?
Prince is amazing.
Wonder Woman has been one of those amazing characters because they have done a lot of things with her. There are some versions of Wonder Woman where she's the typical Wonder Woman you expect, honorable and others, and then there are some movies where she's actually quite dark, and it's like the kind of woman you don't want to mess with, because she will kill you.
What was that movie that was out a couple of years ago?
Wonder Woman.
That was
that was a Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
movie.
played by
loved it.
Israeli actress Gal Gadot.
I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful woman too. She looks great.
Well, the thing about Wonder Woman is that she has a lot of values and motives and a good message. And then there was the Wonder Woman series that was on
Yes, I
years
remember
ago.
that.
Yeah.
That's still on Me TV on Saturday nights for the kids. And they keep replaying it over and over. What was the name of the actress?
Oh, God, I forget.
Linda Carter.
Yes, that's
Linda
right.
Carter.
Linda Carter.
Yeah. She, and you just wondered what in the heck kept her costume up, It was a
Double-sided tape.
It's not going to slip because of the sensors and
it was double-sided tape.
But even so, it's fascinating to watch, everything that she does, and that costume doesn't move an inch. I think that's probably where the Wonder Woman bra.
What's been fascinating about the Wonder Woman character is, of course, it's an American invention. And you can tell with the original costume, and it's sort of stars and stripes and the American colors, right? But as the character evolves, especially in this day and age, her costume has changed a bit drastically. It's not so American anymore. It has, so still some revealing parts, but it's not so much the American color anymore.
More universal now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
Which I think is great.
Okay, number 6, Captain America.
But of course.
Understandable.
The listener says that he's an astonishing individual with leader, charisma, and dedication to doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So Steve Rogers as Captain America is an impressive hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the entire Marvel DCU is almost based around him and the Iron Man movies. So.
Marvel DCU?
Sorry, Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
The MCU.
MCUs there. Whatever. One of those movie universes is based around him for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
number 5.
More Iron Man, though.
We're getting close to, we're halfway through now. Hal Jordan as
okay.
the Green Lantern.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't know who that is.
No,
but I know who the Green Lantern
I
is.
remember the Green Lantern in cartoons, or no, not cartoons. I think it actually was a series with actors.
I don't remember if there was a TV
animated,
series about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those interesting things. I mean, the concept that he can create anything he wants with his ring really, basically says your imagination is the limit of what you can do.
I gather there were a series of different Green Lanterns, and this
There's
like
a society.
Doctor Who. There was a series.
Well,
No, I
it's
guess so.
actually there's like a society of
okay.
them. I think it's like on a different planet or something. And he is.
Yeah, he's essentially a cosmic cop.
Yes. Yeah.
He's allocated to this beat.
And
this
I
region,
think the
whichever it is.
rings get passed down.
Yeah, if you die, the ring basically apparently
Chooses
gets off your
someone
finger
else.
and then chooses somebody else to be
Yeah.
the next cop.
Okay, number 4 is Thor.
Yeah. Okay, can I just say that I am so happy he's above Captain America? I love Thor.
Yeah, they say it's epic fantasy, engrossing adventures, and humanizing the god of thunder. That's-
So much better than Jesus.
And his character development in the first Thor movie is unparalleled. It is amazing, and that is one of the best Marvel movies ever. You should go watch it again, guys. It's amazing.
Okay,
I love that.
Recommended by Christina.
Yes.
we're going to make Christina extremely happy
Okay.
because number 3 is
Iron Man.
Spider-Man.
No, Spider-Man is number
Spider-Man.
1.
Yeah.
No,
Spider-Man.
he's number 1.
Yeah,
He's number one.
According to this list,
This person's
Spider-Man's
wrong.
Number 3, and so Spidey, it's very classic.
Oh,
Do
absolutely.
we still like Spider-Man?
No.
One of my favorite.
The newest Spider-Man movie is breathtaking.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Spider-Man Into the Universe, or Into the Spider-Verse,
Oh, okay.
it is one of the best movies I have ever seen. It is amazing.
Well, I think I saw the first 2, but I haven't kept up with.
Oh,
Well, they've got the new actor that plays Spider-Man is a UK actor by the name of Tom Holland.
He's amazing. He is the best
does-
Spider-Man.
Well, I think to play a good Spider-Man is not hard. To play a good Peter Parker,
Yeah.
that's the hard thing.
Yeah.
The newest Spider-Man is actually an animated film about
Yes,
Miles Morales.
He's
amazing.
Any guess as to how long Spider-Man has been amusing us? And
I think
how many
time.
years?
I think it came out of the 60s, the original
So
Spider-Man.
50 years.
50 years.
50 years, yeah.
50. That's an enduring hero.
And
Yeah.
he is still, to this day, one of the, I would say, the most popular superhero.
Oh, for sure. By far.
Yeah, I'd say even more than Superman. Because everyone knows about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because, think about at Halloween, everyone every other kid is Spider-Man.
Well, it's because he's more relatable. Superman is an alien from outer space. Spider-Man is a teen from Queens.
And his words of wisdom are...
With great power.
It's not. That was Uncle Ben.
But yeah, still.
Don't take.
Okay, here we go. Numbered. We're getting.
Got to get some letters, some hate mail there. Why do you say this?
See if there's any controversy here between number 2
If
and
Superman is there, I am going to flip a table.
Number 2.
That is Superman.
Let's go number 2. Batman.
What?
Okay, seriously, is Batman and Superman going to be number 1? This is bullshit. I can understand why Batman is number 2.
I thought for sure
Batman is pretty awesome.
So we don't agree that he should be number 2.
No,
I think should be number 1, but
I think Spider-Man should be number 1. But I think Batman is definitely up there.
Yeah.
He is definitely a really interesting character. The movies have done him shame on a lot of aspects.
What about the Christopher Nolan ones?
Oh, no, those ones are amazing.
Yeah,
I love those.
Even the Tim Burton ones were not that bad.
Yeah, the newest ones are horrible.
What the one that I saw was with Michael
Keaton.
Keaton,
I think he was almost the best Batman of them all.
Yeah.
One of the best Bruce Wayne, I should say.
Yeah, and of course there was the TV series, which was it was groundbreaking at the time,
absolutely.
With all the villains and the camera,
the
angles,
shark spray repellent,
and the music. Yeah, everything. It was really, really great. Okay, then number 1 has to be.
Don't be Superman. God, don't be Superman.
It's gonna be Superman.
You gotta be Superman. There you go. So how do we feel about?
I hate it.
Okay, why?
I hate Superman. He's
such a Boy Scout.
Well, no, it's like he has no character development. He's just always perfect, and it's just like, what struggle have you ever had in life?
Yeah, well, I think this is it, right? What I think appeals to the crowd is something you can relate to.
Yeah.
This is why Spider-Man and Batman are so close. But Superman is just an ideal you can never reach.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying, is that some of these heroes are static. You know, they come fully assembled, and there's no evolution. But that appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a constant.
I also like my superheroes to have a little bit of conflict in themselves and like a darker side. That's why I actually like Batman.
Not to be invincible.
But like, yeah, and like Superman, like he literally can just say, "Peace out, I'm going to a different planet."
Yeah.
Like.
Well, there are characters that have flaws, and then they're more endearing because they're more human. So overall, who would you put now as number 1?
Spider-Man.
You put Spider-Man. Who'd you put, Kevin?
I think I would put Batman.
I also, instead of Captain America, would have Iron Man on the list.
Iron Man would be a good
one. I like Iron Man way more than Captain America.
I don't think so.
Anybody else that wasn't on this list?
I would put the Hulk on one of those lists.
Hulk?
Because of the whole Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
And the Hulk is exactly that, right? And they I mean, anyway, we could go on that forever. Yeah. We can do a whole podcast on geeking out with superheroes.
We should. We should just do a geek out podcast.
And other than Wonder Woman, have there been any other
Captain Marvel? Miss Marvel? There's some
she's
good.
She's not as well known. I mean, I know very
she will be in a few months.
Yeah.
She's gonna be badass.
No, you're right. There's a whole bunch of lady superheroes.
Black Widow, I don't think deserves to be on there because she isn't as fleshed out.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really know who she is.
They could do a movie entirely about her too.
If there isn't already, there should be a test of a psychological profile of people who prefer one superhero over another. I mean, if you like Batman better than Thor, what does that say about your character?
I think the reason I like Spider-Man so much is he's the best parts of Iron Man and Captain America mixed together. Because I like Captain America's like loyalty and like his striving to do the best and like protect people, but I love Iron Man's quippiness and just confidence and this ingenuity. Spider-Man's just the best mix of both.
Yeah, but the quippiness and the ingenuity, that's Robert Downey Jr.'s take on the character. I mean, in the original comic, he's a smart guy.
Is he not quippy?
I don't remember him being quippy. I don't remember him being like super.
Again, I haven't read the comics, so I'm just going off the movies.
It could be why he's not on that list too, right? But anyway.
Anyway, it's kind of fun. Thank you for suggesting
Yes.
that one. It makes my life a lot easier when you suggest.
Yes.
And I don't have to paw through. Oh my gosh, what's a good top 10?
All the top 10s that could happen.
This week? Yeah.
Well, we don't
Right.
have Kirsten with us.
No.
So we don't have
But
another...
she's coming back. Don't worry,
Yes.
listeners. She's
Yes.
coming
Yeah.
back.
Unless she dies in a horrible motor vehicle accident on the Coquihalla.
Don't say that. So
morbid me.
So we don't have another brilliant moment, but we do have something we haven't done in a while.
Doesn't mean the world's not effed up.
No, true enough. So this is. It's been a while since we've done that.
It has.
All right. You guys ever suffer from back pain?
Sometimes, but not since I've been using my ab muscles.
Well, there's a man, an Irishman, 33. He was suffering from back pain.
I know.
And he had a swollen arm when he went to the hospital. Now, the doctors started doing some x-rays and realized there was a bit of a pocket of air in his arm. And they wondered why. Well, this man apparently has been injecting himself with his own semen.
Don't do this, people. Don't do it.
Once a month for a year and a half. So, this seemingly harmless...
Is he dating a woman who puts parsley up or you know what? They sound like they kind of should go together, unfortunately. Oh, what a bad joke that is.
So, like I said, this seemingly harmless procedure.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So doctors are basically saying, don't do that.
No, do not do that.
I guess this guy really screwed himself.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
The best part is they cannot figure out where he came up with this. Well, he literally came up with it himself.
Exactly.
There must have been a weird voice that told him to do it.
Why is that? Or the guy's like the super macho guy that'll say, you know what? My GS feels pretty good down there. It's going to feel good everywhere else.
Barf. Like, can't make up this stupid.
I want to forget that as soon as the show is over. I want that to disappear out of my mind.
I guess it's a case of premature inoculation.
Oh my God. I want to forget these puns.
This is perfect for you, Kevin. You're just coming up with these one after another. Please stop.
No. Well, the doctors didn't see didn't see coming. Now imagine being one of those poor sperm that realize all of a sudden you're in the biceps and wait a minute, I'm looking for an egg here. I'm completely lost. These guys have, they don't have any tracking system. These poor guys. So I don't know why he was injecting himself in the arm.
Because he's an idiot.
Because he could reach it easier.
Yeah, it's true that you can't really inject something in your back. That'd be really hard. But I don't know where the hell he got this. I don't know.
Crazy people.
If this treatment had somewhat worked and made it to like a real treatment, I guess this guy
don't
would have
even then. Don't do it.
No.
Just don't do it.
Well, this guy would have been laughing all the way to the bank. The sperm bank. Oh, all right. Enough of the jokes.
I mean, if you can unsee, you can't unsee something, but I'm really hoping you can unhear.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess this is the reason why we bring something like this up is...
So Kevin can make puns.
Yes, that's part of it.
He's such a punny guy. And we're going to send him to the penitentiary if he keeps it up.
But it's also to point out that, I don't know where the hell he got this or how, but this is why you seek professional advice. And you don't listen to a place like Goop or Mary Claire or this idiot, because you can really have some problems here, I don't know. It seems to make sense to me, right? You really got to be critical, and obviously this guy has a lack of critical thinking happening his way.
Among other things.
Amongst other things.
I mean, I feel sorry for people who think these things and give them some kind of validity and decide, oh, I'll just go ahead and experiment. It's all the same body. How can it hurt me?
Yeah, I don't understand that. It's crazy. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. So let's go on pause here. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to the ladies of Forsaking Faith.
Oh, thank God.
Get some more estrogen up in here.
Yeah, just like we need more of that, right?
Hey, we always need more estrogen.
All right, so stay with us.
Women represent.
What's up, heathens? I'm the Godless Engineer, and it would be great if you could join me on my YouTube channel. Over there, we post videos every day. On Mondays, we normally post a response video of some kind. Tuesdays, we post our daily Bible podcast that I record with KC. Wednesdays, we read comments. Thursdays and Fridays is conspiracy theory and flat earth stuff. And we have a news segment that runs Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays that is Today I Learned from KC.
Hi, y'all.
So please join us over on the YouTube channel Godless Engineer, where we always stand up and use our voice.
If your skepticism is socially conscious and doesn't take itself too seriously, you might like Life, the Universe, and Everything Else.
Great comfort, his big stumper was literally, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
A lot of the interviews took place in front of a building that said liberal arts. I'm guessing that they're not all science majors.
Life, the Universe, and Everything Else. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else. I don't know, Zune? Is that still a thing?
The problem is that whenever somebody seriously represents his belief that Elvis is still alive in a conversation, on a first date, at a lecture, at a job interview, he immediately pays a price. He pays a price in ill-concealed laughter.
Right. Now, surely you can agree with
that is a good thing. Now, then he could rattle on about this is not a scientific claim. This is a matter of faith. You know, when I look at you, I see you might be Elvis. I mean, he could do this.
Well, joining us back online are the ladies from Forsaking Faith. Got Christine and Heather. They're snappy dressers and snazzy dancers. Ladies, welcome back to Left of the Valley.
Thank you for having us back.
It's good. We didn't scare them too much last time.
Nope.
It wasn't too bad.
We put on our Canadian charm.
Yeah, no, we've
Is
been...
there such a thing?
Yeah, we've been looking forward
It's called
to
the
having
word
you back.
sorry.
Yeah. We're really delighted to have you back. We've really been looking forward to it. So welcome.
Yes, despite the fact that Canada's now at war with Norway, we really appreciate you guys doing this with us. You guys didn't hear about this, right?
Thank you.
You guys didn't hear about this, did you?
They haven't listened to our show yet.
No. Apparently Norway has built a bigger moose than us, and now we're at war with them.
Yep. We take our moose very seriously.
Absolutely.
Very seriously.
Interesting.
All right, ladies, maybe you'd be so kind to refresh our audience with a quick bio as who the ladies of Forsaking Faith are.
Yes. Okay. Shall I go first? I will go first. Okay. So my name's Heather. I'm one of the co-hosts of Forsaking Faith, and I am almost done with my PhD in English literature. I live somewhere in the southeast of the United States. And our podcast, Forsaking Faith, is about the complex emotional journey of deconverting from Christian fundamentalism. And Christine, my co-host Christine, and I both attended the same church and the same Christian school for many years. So that's how we know each other. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Christine. We have been on a hiatus from our show for a little while, but we're coming back soon because my lovely friend is getting her dissertation. It's pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. And then, I've just been, chilling in my atheist world, and it's awesome. I'm from New Hampshire, and we have big moose as well, but we're not very competitive about it.
That was a behind-the-scene moment. They don't know.
I thought it was on the show.
Oh, was it on the show?
Right.
Oh, anyway, we'll make it work.
It's all good.
Ladies, welcome
back.
Talking
about moose.
Yeah. Yes, let's talk about moose.
Hey, moose are my favorite animal. Okay, they're amazing.
They are amazing.
They have such long legs.
Remember, apparently we have 1 million of them.
I know.
Apparently, we get about 1 million moose in
the babies are so cute with their ears. Sorry, I'll stop.
it's great for me because I've never seen a moose in real life.
Oh, they're wonderful to see.
To tell you the truth, neither have I.
Just put some antlers on Joe Camel, and you got pretty much the same thing.
I've never had the pleasure of seeing one in real life either.
What?
I know.
Okay.
Don't remind me of the error of my ways.
Well, you live in the boonies anyway. I mean, don't
We
you?
only saw black bears and cougars, coyotes. Never a wolf.
Well, no, wolves are further up.
Raccoon. I had a raccoon stick its hand up against the window.
Despite
and I
the
put my hand
fun
against it. We had a connection.
This is
It
why you
was
drink.
so cute.
Well, this was a great show. Thank you so much for coming, ladies. That was great. That was great radio.
But they're so talkative. We never got a word in edgewise. They feel so
Christina's so
underused.
talkative,
Yeah.
we never got a word in edgewise.
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
All right, so today we are discussing whether or not the Bible is actually good literature. Because I hear this all the time, right? I hear this especially of the defenders of the faith.
Who've never read the Bible.
And they'll say stuff like, oh, the Bible needs to be taught in school. And I tell them, no, it's not a science book. When they say, then they come back and they say, well, would you at least agree that it could be taught in English class as literature? At that point, I'm kind of forced to say, well, sure, I guess you could do that. But then I start wondering, is it actually good literature? And who else but you guys would know this? So let's ask the question. Guys, what do you think about the Bible being good literature?
Oh, such a good question. Okay, Christine, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Oh, come on, so that you can leave me in the dust after. No, so I actually have been thinking about this question, because we were planning on talking about it on the show, and why else would I think about this question? No, I'm just teasing. So, is it an anthology, Heather, or what is it called when you bring a bunch of stories together? Is that right?
No, it's not an anthology. It's just a compilation of because an anthology implies that there's premeditated organization and purpose. So that's the difference. So like an anthology would be if I decided to put together a collection of stories and I solicited different stories from different authors, then that would be an anthology.
I see.
But the Bible, of course, was put together really haphazardly.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. So for example, let's take the old 19 sitcoms Friends. So if you're doing a book on Friends, but then you tell Rachel's story and what are the other characters? Ross's story and all the stories of all the characters, that's an anthology.
Not if it's the same author.
Oh.
So that would be just a story that's different voices,
Okay.
like a multi-voice story, which that's also quite common. But no, an anthology is when there are different authors.
Yeah.
that
So if you wanted
contribute.
to, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was
Chrissy.
just gonna say, so if you wanted to bring together all the literature that's been about spiders, right?
Oh, okay.
Then you go look for Anansi and any other stories about spiders or insects, right? What's the other one where the guy metamorphose? Yeah, so that kind of thing where you're like, okay, I want to look for stories about bugs. And so you gather all of those and put them into an anthology and publish that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Bible is
Subjective.
precisely not that. Is what you're saying.
No.
Right, but Chrissy, that's a good question because I assume, I would imagine that could be one argument for a pro Bible, Christian. They would say something like, "Oh yeah, it's a piece of literature, and that look, it's this beautiful, collection of stories that are, revealing the nature of God." But the problem with that argument is that, like I was saying before, it's the Bible's. The Bible exists as a document today in a very unplanned, unpremeditated way. So.
How dare you say that about the word of the Almighty God?
Well, especially when you look at there were so many stories that people wanted included in the Bible that were rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends also which
definitely.
version you take, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the Anglican version is about 66 books in there, but if you go into the
Catholic
version,
Bible has so many more.
I think it's 73.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's the Maccabee story, right? That's not in. I think that's only in the Catholic version, and there's a couple of additional books.
Okay, well that solves that issue. Now, of all the pieces of literature that we have in the world today, anything from the words of Dr. Seuss to Shakespeare, we have a wide variety. So I guess the question is, what does make good literature?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
that's a tiny question.
Yeah, how much time do we have? No, I'll try to condense.
Take all the time you need, dear.
Obviously, this is a raging debate amongst literary scholars, especially because we are in an era where we are challenging the canon. So up until about the 1960s, there was this concept of literature, and we defined it in a very narrow, rigid way, and it was primarily white male authors of Western cultures. And so then we had in like the 60s decade, what we call the canon wars, where people started to challenge
very bloody wars.
So we're in an era where we are, we reject the idea that that's all literature is, but at the same time, we do need to have some standards, and where do we draw the line? And so the way most people define literature is basically it has to have a couple of different components, and one of them is that we look at the craft, so like the artistry that goes into a text, and that has to so there has to be some sort of aesthetic value, like there has to be some sort of beauty, however you're defining beauty, of the language, and so that's part of that's part of it. And then the other part of it is, is it complex? Like, is it nuanced? Is it challenging society's assumptions? Is it resisting a particular political group, or does it have a particular political message? I mean, all literature is political to some extent. So that's sort of like the broadest definition. So in other words, it's not just plot driven for entertainment purposes. So a book like, I don't know, 50 Shades of Grey would not be considered, I definitely would not define that as literature. It's entertaining, but it's really just based on plot points. It's not interested in the quality of the language. It's also not interested in character development or anything. So that's the core difference, but these are all, it does vary on objective. It is very, it is. And it varies based on who you talk to, but generally speaking, that's the sort of essential, distinguishing.
Okay.
factor.
So for some of us that are not as smart as you two, if I was to ask, give me like 3-4 bullet points that you would think you would need as a criteria to make it good literature. What would you say? The development of character is one, or
Yeah, so I would say, and I'll let Chris answer too, but as a literature scholar, so it has to be character driven and character focused. There needs to be an artistry that has gone into the language itself. So there needs to be a sense that the writer is actually cares and is thoughtful about the actual linguistic elements, like what word choices are they using, what kinds of figurative language are they using. And it needs to be nuanced. So, and what I mean by that is, okay, I'm a Shakespeare scholar. So Shakespeare is, in all of his plays, there's a lot of complexity to the characters. A character is usually not just an outright villain, even if they end up being villainous in some ways. There's layers to them. And there's complexity when it comes to good and evil. So those are the bullet point.
Okay, so character development, artistry, and nuance / complexity. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So, Chrissy, did you want to weigh in? Because that's my sense.
Well, sure. I mean, without the degree, I sound a little naive here, but that's okay. So yeah, the only thing I would say is that is nuance really, like, how does nuance really separate itself from, I mean, so many beautiful romance stories, or I can't think of any right now, but have been done before, right? So like, I don't know, the one that was before Romeo and Juliet that was a similar story. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Pyramus and Thisbe. Yeah.
That's it. That's the one. So Shakespeare's literature, but that's not necessarily a nuanced story, although he does use the different. So do you think it just has to have one of those three elements, or does it have to have all of the elements?
I think it has to. That's a good question. I think generally I would say it has to have all three. And I would say I think there's a difference between. So when I say nuance, I don't mean originality.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like it doesn't have to be. So Shakespeare's not. Most of his material isn't original, like you're pointing out. Most of his stories, like in terms of the plot, are just rehashed. But what I mean by nuance is like the thematic material is complicated. So in the example of Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare modifies the original story and he adds a lot more complexity to it, especially in terms of, just raising questions of what is too far, like can you take love too far? There's a lot about the family and the control, like the way that Juliet is controlled by her parents. That he kind of fleshes out. That's in the Ovid story. But it's sort of implied in the Ovid story, but Shakespeare kind of fleshes that out. So yeah, that's what I mean by nuance. Yeah, and so I'm glad you asked that, because I don't mean original. Definitely something doesn't have to be original.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And to be literature. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I'm not, it's tough because the Bible now has been translated so many times that when I think about it as literature now, I don't really see the artistry necessarily that you're talking about, because the language is it's so something I'm so used to that I can't necessarily see the art in it. You know? Although Song of Solomon has some beautiful metaphor and some good healthy stuff in it, but otherwise, like the New Testament feels to me like a storybook, much of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think I also have a similarly complicated response to the question of, is the Bible literature, for, I think, a similar reason, because it's hard, I think, for me, like you're saying, Chrissy, I would agree, like it's hard for me to separate myself from the context in which I originally read the Bible, which was not be noticing those elements.
Right.
But there are some really beautiful parts. I would definitely argue, I guess, so to answer like the ultimate question, I mean, I would say that there are some books that I would consider literature. I don't know. I'm less certain about about all of them, but
that's interesting, Heather. Maybe we should get together and do an anthology of the books that we think are literature.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yes, let's do it.
The literary books of the Bible. That might be fun.
That would be so fun. I mean, Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
No, we do see a lot of romance in the Bible, right? Like Ezekiel 23:20, right? Then she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys, and whose ambition was that of horses. Who needs Romeo and Juliet when you have that, right?
So romantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that guy took those ambition, injected him in his arm.
Oh my god!
Right, because he had back pain, which is reference to an earlier story we did. Right. So okay. So let's stick to what we said: the character, the artistry, and the nuance / complexity. So if we're going to go with the character development and all that, you guys have read the Bible, I'm assuming.
Mm.
Yeah. So you guys have a particular character. I mean, it seems to me, and this is just my unprofessional opinion, that the characters are pretty much almost one-dimensional. You don't see a lot of development in any of them, even Jesus.
But I would say that the characters are sometimes almost contradictory. Because, like, when you look at the character of Jesus, there's some times where he's all, like, preaching love and stuff, but then he's, like...
Well, that's because there's 4 versions of him, right?
Yelling at a fig tree.
Yeah, and also David. I agree. Yeah, there is some complexity. Also, I was thinking immediately of David as well, because he's... this supposedly righteous man of God, but then he's also or I don't know. Are we allowed to swear?
Yes.
Can I use this?
You can't fucking swear on the show.
He's an asshole in the way that he views women, right? Like, so there's the whole Bathsheba episode where he has her husband killed just so that he can have sex with her. So, I mean, I think there are moments where you see that complexity, but then I also think that I think there are other episodes that are more where the characters are more one-dimensional. So I think it just depends.
Yeah. So I think the main character of the Bible is actually interestingly kind of dynamic. So I think the God of the Old Testament is very different than the God of the New Testament, and you don't see. There's no sort of character shift either. It's just sort of, the Old Testament ends and then the New Testament begins with, Christ and this like angry, jealous God from the Old Testament is very different from the loving, forgiving God of the New Testament.
I totally agree. If at least he'd said something like, okay, then God woke up after sobering up and then he started being loving again,
Yeah.
That would at least make some sense.
Or I have like smoke some weed, maybe.
I wonder on a psychological level if God of the Bible is narcissistic.
Oh, of course he is.
Sure.
So then in the New Testament, it's like, because I know a narcissist who love bombs, so I'm like, I wonder if it's just him love bombing the world.
Wait, what is that? What is love bombing?
Yeah, because I thought it was a bath bomb.
Love bombing is where a narcissist. So say a narcissist, like is mean and like telling you like you're horrible for like not cleaning the house, and then after saying that they'll be like, but I love you. You're amazing.
Okay.
But specifically to keep that connection with you.
Don't they have that in the U.S.? I think it's called the President of the United States.
Yeah, it is. He is a narcissist.
Hey.
He is so a narcissist.
He's a sociopath too.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nancy, you were about to say.
Well,
We do have one of those.
as someone who is really not familiar with the Bible, and I don't know
What are you talking about? You were there.
But it's in terms of in terms of my knowledge, and you ladies are going to straighten me out in a minute here. But it seems that if the Bible is made up of various books that were written by various people at different times in order to accomplish I think there are various things. For instance, one might be a narrative of how a people like the Jews developed. Another in terms of who Jesus was. In the New Testament may be in terms of how a way to keep women to take power away from women. There was a certain agenda. So you have different books that were written at different times, and maybe some of the authors had an idea of literature while others just wanted to get across either their agenda or a story. So my point in all of this babbling is when you look at the Bible and you ask an overarching question such as, is the Bible good literature? Can you do that as a whole, or can you reduce that to there are parts of the Bible that may be considered good literature while other parts were there just to make a point for the Catholic Church or whatever version that was? So is the overarching question a reasonable one?
Well, I'm gonna say that I think it is, because it's a bit like saying, is Kevin a good person? Well, there are some things about Kevin that here and there he's a bit of an ass here and there, but there are some things about him but overall, is he a good person? I think we can say
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that would mean in terms of literature that overall, let's say there are 63 or 72 books. In order to say is the Bible good literature, you'd have to say a majority of those 72 or 63 or whatever it is. Yes, there are good literature, but do you have to parse that, or can you just say
depends
overall?
Depends how detailed we want to get into the analysis.
I mean, I'm just bringing this up as a question.
You're trying to muddy the waters again.
I'm muddying the waters.
So I think that's a good point that Kevin said. You know, it depends on how detailed we want to go, because you can look at I really like Genesis in terms of artistry and character development and
yes,
and nuance, and you know, because there aren't many stories like that, you know, and so if we were just talking about Genesis, then I think that we'd have a very good argument. But when you get to Numbers, there's a totally different reason for that book in the Bible, and so including that in the Bible is maybe an artistic. If someone was building this as a piece of literature, including Numbers is an artistic thing. You know, that those details that Tolkien brought into his work can be really. There's a lot of them, you know, and there's a.
Yeah, but his details were still enjoyable.
Go ahead, Heather. You.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, but I think that again, the key difference is that when we're looking at a text like Lord of the Rings, or even like the Metamorphoses, which we brought up already, which is a compilation of lots of different stories, but it's one author. So I think the problem with trying to make, and this goes back to your point too, Kevin, I think that the difference is that if you're looking at one person, you can kind of say, okay, overall, this person's a good person. Or if you're looking at a text that is by one author, or again, a series of authors, but that were intentionally, compiled to be put together, I think it's easier to make that determination. But yeah, I think it's very hard to make an sort of overarching determination with the Bible, because it is just so very, like Genesis, right? Genesis is, I agree, I think really beautiful. It's very beautiful poetry. There's a lot of parallelism, which is a poetic device. But that's a different author than, later books of the Bible. So
what are you talking about? Genesis is real. The earth is 6,000 years old. Don't you understand this? Moses wrote that. Moses, the unknown Shakespeare.
Man. Yeah, so right, or you could read it like a science textbook. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
My childhood.
That's a good one. Where's the 85th edition?
Oh my gosh.
Where's the new edition? When did they take out the errors?
This is where I like to bring the eternal wisdom of Homer J. Simpson, who basically said, the first you should write a 2.0 version. The first one sold pretty good.
Oh my gosh. I think they tried. It's called Mormonism.
Okay, so if I was to ask you guys, which character do you feel, because we're talking about character evolving in the Bible, which character do you think is probably best developed, which is the more interesting character from a literacy point of view? Which one you guys would vote for?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I like what you said earlier, Chrissy. Like God is a character.
Yeah,
but I think Moses definitely is a complex character. Like I said, David. I think Esther. I would definitely say the Book of Esther. I would definitely characterize that as literature. And there's a lot of complexity.
You might want to refresh the memory of our audience and myself about Esther here.
Yeah. So Esther. Oh, fun! Such a fun book. You guys should read this one. Yeah. So she's up. This takes place in Persia. This is at the time where basically the Israeli group, the Israelites, are basically living in subjugation by the Babylonian Empire. So they're kind of they're living in Babylon, but they're not really, don't have a lot of rights. They're kind of like considered lower class citizens. Anyway, the king has decides, for a complicated reason that is too long to get into, but anyway, basically he decides that he wants a new wife, and so he sends out scouts to find the most beautiful women in the country and basically have a beauty pageant. Like they spend a whole year preparing, and then they go in front of the king, and the king chooses the ones that he thinks are really beautiful, and he sleeps with them, and then he decides whether or not he wants to make this woman his wife or make her a concubine. So Esther, that's her Persian name. Her Hebrew name is Hadassah. Anyway, gets chosen and apparently is so good in bed that he chooses her to marry him. But she keeps her identity a secret. So there's all this it's a romance. There's also espionage in it because her uncle is you got to basically give me insider knowledge about what the king is planning. And he's like, don't let anyone know your identity, that you're Hebrew. Mordecai, and then, Mordecai, and then the king decides that for some complicated political reasons that he's going to kill all the Hebrew people, basically commit mass genocide. And Esther has to make a decision. Do I stand up for my people and basically reveal my identity and kind of try to persuade the king? Or do I... just remain silent. And so she decides to risk it and basically goes. So in this culture, you're not supposed to go in front of the king unless he grants you an audience. And that is an act that's punishable by death. So she decides to risk it. And so she goes before the king and basically pleads with him. And he is persuaded by her. So that's where the, what's the holiday? Oh, I can't remember. No, it's not Rosh Hashanah. It starts with a P. Purim or something?
Purim, yeah, Purim. Yes, that's it.
Purim.
That ring a bell to you?
So that holiday, that holiday celebrates that event. Okay, that's a really brief synopsis, but...
What's that?
Hamantash and cookies are much loved for Purim.
Oh,
yeah. She is a stellar character in Judaism, and she's very revered, and young girls love that story and look up to her.
Yeah, she had a new wife smell too, which the king really liked at the time.
New wife
Hamantash and cookies are three-cornered hat cookies, and in the middle they have a jam, depending on what the jam is.
Yeah, I've had them. They're good.
Oh, that sounds good. I haven't had them.
Oh, you should bake some of those for us one of these days.
Oh, sure.
Why am I the only one baking cookies here? What's up with that?
We break stereotypes here.
Okay, so that seems like a very interesting character. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to artistry. Yeah. So as far as the books, I guess when you mean artistry, you mean they're written with a certain flair?
So I mean that so the term that we usually use is craft. So meaning that, so craft just means artistry or skill, right? So so when I build a chair, if I'm building it purely for utilitarian purposes, that's different than if I, let's say, made a lot of decisions about what the chair would look like that are based on, let's say, a certain aesthetic. I want it to look like a Baroque style chair, for example. I'm going to put a lot of detail into it. And that's what we would mean by craft. So we apply that term to literature. And so there has to be a sense, for something to be considered good literature, there has to be a sense that the writer is not just writing something purely for entertainment.
So eloquence in other words.
Oh, go ahead.
Eloquence in other words, right?
And specifically at the linguist, are they looking at the sentence level quality of the work, and the sentence level quality matters, not just is it entertaining. So there has to be an intentionality to the choices that the writer has made in terms of how they are putting together the words.
So you guys must be like trying to cut your ears off whenever you listen to a speech from Donald Trump, right?
I read them later. I don't listen to them.
Poke your eyes out. And,
Probably a good choice.
I for real do not take the time. Yeah, it's tough.
That's remarkable because he says he knows all the words.
He's the best words.
He's the best words.
Yeah, he's the best, and they're intentional best words.
Intentional best words.
I don't think he knows the word intentional. Honestly, I don't.
No, he doesn't seem to know sometimes what he's even saying.
Sometimes?
Oh, dear.
Anyway, we digress.
Yeah, I guess I'm being too generous. Yeah.
So eloquence, we were saying.
Trump as literature is a totally different conversation that doesn't need to be had ever by anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so an example is, for example, if Donald Trump was to describe something as, okay, this is bigly, that's horrible.
Yeah.
But an artist, somebody that with eloquence would describe something as a gargantuan, for example, and that's just describes better artistry and the manipulation of the word, right?
Yeah.
There we go. I understand.
Yeah, exactly.
See, not as dumb as I look.
I mean, from an atheist perspective, we see the Bible as a totally different thing, right? It has a lot of, for us, it has a lot more metaphor than Christians might think, where they think, okay, no, I mean, when we were kids, we were taught that everything in the Bible was true, that Jonah was in a big fish.
Same for me.
3 days. What?
I said same for me.
Right. And so now that I'm an atheist, the Bible carries more metaphor and nuance. So I don't know if it was intentional, right? But when I read it, which is like never now, but when I do, need to, I do see a little bit more artistry than I did when I was younger, definitely.
Well, people don't know is when you spend 3 days in a fish, it does wonders for your skin. You get the tuna, you get the tuna smell, but you really have like wonderful smooth skin after. That's the nuance of the Bible.
People know that, actually.
It's just not you. You're the only one that's just finding out about it now.
You're the only one that can get us from the Bible to tuna in one sentence, Kevin.
Okay, so
that's an art.
It is. I'm making progress here. So if I was asked, which one do you guys figure out of all the books of the Bible? Is there a particular book that stands out more for its artistry and its eloquence over the others?
For me, definitely the Psalms are really as poetry are beautiful. Yeah, and definitely, I mean, it's poetry, so yeah, it's interested in the figurative language, like the metaphors and other kinds of poetic sensory language. Although, Chrissy, I agree with you that it's interesting because I never had that experience with the Psalms growing up because we were only reading the Psalms as a kind of like literal guidebook to, here's how you understand God. But coming at it now from this perspective after I've deconverted, I can appreciate, it's like what you were saying, Christine. I really agree that I actually have more of an appreciation and awareness in some ways for Psalms than I ever did when I was a Christian, because I can appreciate the skill that went into writing those poems. It's basically just a long series of poems, and they're really beautiful. So that would be... Is
it possible that can we be attributing more meaning to the poems that they actually were originally designed for, or how do you guys figure that out? You say they look better today as an atheist because you don't have the belief. But I mean, are we reading too much into it? Is it possible?
Too much as Christians or too much as atheists?
Too much as atheists.
So that I don't love that question, right?
I'm sorry.
Because I think you're asking whether or not there is. So I don't know. If you look at the Psalms and Song of Solomon, when they were written, we sort of have no idea, unless, Heather, you know more than I do. In terms of a historical perspective, we have trouble even verifying the Bible, right? Yeah. And
go ahead.
I mean, you could.
I was just going to agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you think about how it sort of evolved over the years, you can sort of take the books as standalone because of, I mean, sorry, audience. So like those Song of Solomon, Psalms, those were written from such a vulnerable, when you read them, it's such a vulnerability and an openness and an artistry in language and metaphor and beauty that I would venture to say that we're actually reading better into it. But like, so that you can't, like, if we found an old piece of literature that wasn't related to the Bible, that had the same sentence structure, we would view it as beautiful literature, whether it meant something or it didn't.
Okay.
I mean, not in terms of, I mean deep meaning, right? I don't mean whether it meant something to our current generation, like the Bible does, is what I'm saying.
When you're talking,
because when you're... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we're talking about the Bible. Is there more good literature in the Old Testament than the New Testament, or do you blend them all together?
I would say yes. Yeah. I think so. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are all the same crap over again. It's kind of from a different...
I love those erudite answers that you give.
Right, I agree. Like, this is where the subjectivity comes in, definitely. But yeah, I would agree as well. Like, I think there's more. There's definitely more poetry in the Old Testament, but that's also just because there are different conventions related to the genre. So, like, the gospel stories are a specific genre, so they're not. So it's just a different. Right, like the writer, like Luke, would not have been interested in writing poetry because that wasn't a convention. But yeah, I agree. I find the poetry of the Old Testament more appealing, although Revelation, which is in the New Testament,
and
is
Corinthians.
Cool.
Well, it's an
and the
trip,
Corinthians
too.
are pretty good.
Yeah,
So I speak with
like
the
Romans.
Men and angels. I like Romans, so I like Romans too, but I like Romans for its argument, right? So for its debate, not necessarily for its artistry. Romans is. I was just gonna go ahead, Kevin.
No, it would make perfect sense. Your answer makes perfect sense because after all, the New Testament is super Jesus centric, right? It's Jesus, nothing but Jesus mostly. And the Old Testament, you have a variety of characters, a variety of stories, a varieties of heroes and villains. So it would make perfect sense that your answer would be more nuanced, I would say, for the Old Testament.
Yeah, I also agree. I completely agree, Kevin. Yeah, I think there's just more.
Like, it's all on you, Kevin.
You better agree. I've got the mute button.
But I will say, Revelation is really a trip.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
right? Like, from the perspective of an atheist, but from the perspective of an atheist, it's actually, I think, more fun because when you're a Christian reading
you're terrified.
You're trying to read too much. Yeah, it's actually scary because you are reading too much into it. Is like the point, going back to the point you were bringing up before, because you're trying to like interpret what does the dragon literally mean, and the beast, and all this stuff. But like, as a basically just extended piece of speculative fiction, right? Like fantasy and metaphor for sort of understanding natural disasters and stuff. It's really interesting.
Right. So I'm not a fan of Revelation for a lot of reasons. I think that the story is very disjoint. I think it's very stylistic and a style that I would just throw right out the window, right? That doesn't make it not literature, but it makes it not my thing.
That's fair.
I would just be like, oh, like I don't want to read this. Whoever wrote this is just not my kind of author.
We were actually thinking of doing a show where we'll just feed LSD to Christina and then let her read Revelation and see what happens. Just let it go.
Ooh, I bet she would love it.
That would be really interesting.
I'll just let it, we'll have a 3-hour show for sure.
Only problem is, would I still be able to read?
Maybe not.
I might be like, the walls are moving.
The beast is in the room.
Look at the pretty colors.
Kevin's turned purple.
Maybe the person was on like shrooms or something.
I could imagine it. Probably cocaine.
John was stranded on an island. I don't know for how long, but he was like exiled on an island when he wrote it. So yeah, who knows what he was smoking?
Who knows what he was eating?
He was licking toads or something.
Probably.
All right. So last but not least, we were talking about a bit nuance and complexity. So which one is your more complex, deliciously complex book in the whole Bible? Long pause.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So from the ones I remember, I mean, you've got let's see, Exodus. I really like Job. I don't like Job. So Job,
the oldest
the
book
story
in the Bible,
of Job for me has a lot of complexity, and I think it's very much like a country song. You know, he lost his kids, he lost his wife.
That's brilliant. I got boils over my body. That's just brilliant.
But I do sort of like this alternative side of how to love God, right? So in the Bible, you do see a lot of like, oh, you know, when you love God, good things that like you have a child, that when you're 180, you have, you know, good things happen. Whereas Job is like such a beautiful contrast to that, I think. Well, not in the end, but you know, but the story, he lives a long time with some pretty crappy stuff, and I like that. I like that complexity.
Well, you're liking to see Job suffer? What the hell?
Yeah, I'm kind of dark.
What's wrong with you?
One of my favorite movies is What Dreams May Come, where everyone dies. So it's not exactly, you know, kind of up my unlike Revelation, where everyone also dies. So I don't know, maybe I'm kind of contradicting myself here.
Jeez, don't get on her bad side.
Yeah, no, I'm also really trying to think, I guess probably this isn't like a book, but the Moses story, I think, is really complex because he's initially he's like, there's a lot going on. I mean, he's struggling with his identity, inhabiting these different cultures, you know, growing up as, you know, in an Egyptian culture, but like knowing that he is actually Hebrew and knowing that he's part of this oppressed, group of people, right? So there's that, but then also when he gets older, I think it gets more interesting when he gets older. I mean, he's like this hero chosen by God, but also really flawed, and to a point that he doesn't get to actually enter the promised land. I mean, like, I can't remember the details. He disobeys God. God tells him to like strike a rock.
Yes.
And he strikes it too many times or something.
Twice,
I can't remember
yeah.
So that
was a dick move by God when you think about it. That was really a dick move. Strike the rock, nothing happens. Strike it again.
God is allowed to be a dick. Yeah. I think we minimize God so much as the idea of God so much. Even Christians, I think, do, but atheists even more so really minimize the idea of God. God is allowed to be a dick. If you can picture this like all-knowing, omniscient, omnipresent, all-powerful being, omnipotent, omnis, all the omnis. You kind of see like, yeah, of course he's a dick. Like we're so much smaller in being than he is, and so he acts in a completely different way. I would love to just like, and maybe we can, Heather, on our podcast sometime, just talk about like what the idea of God really is, because we do minimize it sometimes. We do call him an asshole, but essentially he's allowed to be. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of. So yeah, he's a dick. You're right, Kevin.
No, I completely agree. But he's allowed to be for sure. But at the same time, it's kind of hard for you to set a standard for your creatures when you can't even live to that standard yourself, right?
That's the thing. I don't think so. I think that you're allowed to do that when you're that powerful. You can be like, do this, and I don't have to.
If the Christians didn't call him perfect, then I think you'd have a very good point. But they do call him perfect all the time, right? So at that point, it's say, well, if he's so perfect, why is he such a dick, right? Anyway, we're not going to get into that battle right now.
It's different.
So overall, ladies, let's final tally here. If I was to ask you guys, do you think the Bible overall, with the sum of their parts and all that, do you recommend that as good literature? Do you think we should actually have that in English class, study the Bible as a literary work, like we do with Shakespeare and other authors? You would say...
I would say yes, and actually, I really would love to take a class that is exactly that, because there's a lot I think I could learn from a theology Bible scholar, because there are quite a few scholars that do exactly that. Like, they're Bible scholars, but they're not necessarily Christians, and they teach the Bible with focusing on the artistry and also focusing on like the historical context, that's something I definitely don't know that much about. And so I definitely say overall yes, and I think that everyone should take a class if you can on it, and I would love to at some point.
Yeah. Do you know of any online classes or classes that might be available? I mean, I think that's. I'm sure there must be, but I love that idea, Heather. It would be great to be able to look at it from that perspective, and there would be a lot to be learned. So I think that's a good recommendation if there are any that most people can access.
You'd have to worry about the source, though. If you're getting the source of teaching literature of the Bible and it's coming from Brigham Young University or something like that,
it has to be a neutral.
So there's
I think just
I see MIT. I see MIT has one.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Let's see. I've got
the university I teach at has one. I know. I just maybe after I'm done with my dissertation, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, but this is an open. This is an open course at MIT. So
cool.
Open courseware.
Okay.
So
I wonder how religious people would react to the Bible actually being taught as literature, because literature isn't factual.
No, I understand that.
And where a lot of Christians look at the Bible as factual.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is religions, and especially Christianity, the Abrahamic religions, are by their own nature dominionist. So if you give them an inch, they will take a foot.
So I think that I think there are some groups that would and some groups that wouldn't, and also not all literature is fiction. So I think they wouldn't necessarily.
Right. I agree. I think it depends. I have some good close friends of mine who are still Christian who definitely would take a class like that, and some who do already. I have a good friend who's very strong Christian. He's actually a pastor, but he would love having like those sort of conversations about like the Psalms and the poetry of the Psalms and stuff like that. So I think it just depends, like Christy was saying, on the person and probably the denomination, because some denominations are more extreme fundamentalist than others. So yeah.
So can I answer? I want to answer.
Of course, by all means.
Yeah.
So I would say I would not teach the Bible.
Sorry, we ran out of time.
Hey,
no, I'm just kidding.
It's okay.
She's gonna hate me.
So, no, I do already hate you.
5 points.
Are you saying that was a given before the show?
I've listened to enough of your shows. No, I'm just joking.
Let her answer.
Okay, I can leave now. I'm sorry.
I love you. Don't worry.
I love you. Okay, so then what I was going to say is I don't think it should be taught as literature in high school.
I fully agree.
Yes, I think that in a university, it serves a better, a different, more analytical community. Even at the graduate level, I think would be even more appropriate. So I think no, the Bible should not be taught as literature until graduate school. Because otherwise, I do think there is some confusion. There's still sort of this shift from Christianity to atheism in the United States. Christians still have the high, the percentile, and I do think that it wouldn't benefit our society to teach it before the graduate level.
No, that's a very good answer.
I agree with that.
Lady.
I'm just wondering whether or not the class could be taught in a Unitarian Universalist type of a setting where it could be taught fairly well as literature rather than tying it to a specific Christian agenda. I think there might be instances where
I think you run too close to the worship.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate.
She's good at it.
Yeah. So you could do religious texts as literature and look at like a broad, like many of the other books that are out there for other religions, and I think that would be interesting. But focusing on the Bible specifically may not be as productive. But I do think maybe you've got something there, Nancy. Maybe we should get together and teach that class.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your expert opinion on the subject. I really, really appreciate that, and I already feel my IQ as risen a couple of digits. I'm in the double digits now.
Fantastic. So proud of you, Kevin.
So before we go, if people want to find you guys, where can they find you? What's coming up for Forsaking Faith? Just, plug yourself. Be shameless.
So you can find us we have a Facebook page, Forsaking Faith. We're on Twitter at Forsaking Faith, and you can also email us forsakingfaith@gmail.com. And Christy, you can talk about what's coming up next.
Yeah, so if you want to, my toddler's shouting right now. We do Women of Deconversion, which is a secular hangout on YouTube. That is sort of where we've been putting our time, our public time. But then we will be adding more episodes for Forsaking Faith in the next couple of weeks. The next one is on relationships and sex. We had one on sex and consent, which was a much more vulnerable one. Relationships and sex is about embracing relationships and sex outside of the faith. And then let's see what else.
They can fully analyze Ezekiel 23:20 there.
Yeah.
I'll bring a donkey too.
So you'll see us come back slowly, but we'll be back shortly. That's a lot of ums. It's because I have a lot of work to do behind it, so my procrastination is saying as is plugging the show.
Perfect. Ladies, before I let you go, I gotta have you say hi. This is Heather and Christine from Forsaking Faith, and we took a left to the valley.
No problem. Hello, this is Christine.
Hi, this is Heather.
And we took a left
at the valley. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if we were supposed to say it at the same time.
That was perfect. And that was the ladies of Forsaking Faith.
Oh, they're just great.
They're just wonderful, aren't they?
Yeah.
I learned a ridiculously large amount in that conversation.
Yeah, that conversation went on, and I had to cut it short for the time, but we probably could have kept going on this.
There's so much brain power and fun power in those ladies are just great.
I think it was a great time, and I was actually pleasantly surprised because I thought for sure when I asked, do you think this is good literature? Do you think the Bible should be considered good literature? I totally expected no, this is crap. Toss it out. And you know what? I sort of wanted that answer to be that, but
they changed my mind.
They basically said no. I think this could be taught in school, and you know what? The expert opinion, you have to agree with them, whether or not you like it.
It was a serious question, and those two ladies are go into depth, and they give you, the answer that comes from their research and their education and their experience, and what comes out is brilliant. It's just great to have them.
Absolutely, it was fun to have them, and we'll have them back for sure. And keep on their show there, Forsaking Faith. And we'll have him back. Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us today. And thank you to the listener for listening to us. I really appreciate that. You can find us at leftofthevalley.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, at LETV Podcast. You can send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com. Send your complaints to Nancy on the 3rd floor, but don't forget to duck. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It really helps us and helps others find the show. Coming up. Okay. Wow, look at that. We're going to February already.
Where did live the year go?
Yes.
Can't believe it's already a month in.
Yes. We'll have our first guest will be Andrew Jasko. And we'll be talking, I can't remember what we'll be talking about, but I'll get back to you on that.
Good job, Kevin.
And then we'll have Zach from Sacrilege. The Sacrilege podcast will be interviewing us. I was on the show not too far recently. And after that, on the 16th, we'll have Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yes. And then after that, the 23rd, we'll have the boys from Godless Heathens.
Nice.
That'll be fun. In March, we'll have a couple of guys called the Skeptical Texans.
Oh.
Now, these guys go from church to church and explain what atheism is.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So that's going to be interesting
they're
to
Texans.
watch.
How could we go wrong, right?
Exactly, from Texas, right? And of course, in March, we'll also have historian extraordinaire Richard Carrier will be coming back.
Our old friend
Richard. Yeah. I'll bring the whiskey for sure. Excellent. We've got lots of things coming up.
Sure do.
Anything else we need to add? That's it.
Go watch the new Spider-Man movie. I think I mentioned it last time, but it's amazing.
You know, I think I preferred it when you used to say Harry Potter.
Okay, go read Harry Potter then. It's amazing as well. Especially when you go watch the old first one and you're like, they're so tiny. And Hermione will say everyone else's lines while she's not supposed to. It's really funny.
This. Let me slip my wrist right now.
Crickets?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Okay, so you guys remember it's Christine and Deb.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Now, I'm trying to remember which one of you two... not Deb, Heather. Jesus Christ. I'm all over the place.
Good job.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like,
who's this?
Who's Deb?
Her name's Christine and Deb. I didn't remember that at all.
I've been considering taking drugs lately so I can try to start coping and do a better job.
Yeah, because that turned out so well last time.
I forget which one of you two ladies is the one that actually graduated with the degree in literature.
Me, Heather.
Okay, because me doesn't say, oh, it's her. Fantastic.
Yeah, she just defended and it's official.
Okay,
Well,
congratulations.
Yeah, almost. Not quite, but almost, yeah. In 3 weeks, I'm having my final dissertation defense. It's scary. It will.
It'll be fine.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance, and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.